Who is Kevin Warsh? For 15 years, Wall Street has operated under a single unwritten rule. It's a rule that has made lazy investors rich and turned reckless CEOs into geniuses. It's called the Fed put. The rule is simple. If stocks crash, the Fed prints money. If the economy slows, the Fed cuts rates. The Federal Reserve is the ultimate safety net, ensuring that asset prices only go in one direction, up. It is the reason why companies that haven't made a dime of profit in a decade are still worth billions of dollars. But as of January 30th, 2026, that rule is dead. Donald Trump just appointed a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who does not care about your portfolio. He doesn't care about the S&P 500 hitting a new all-time high. And he certainly doesn't care if a few zombie companies go bankrupt. His name is Kevin Warsh, and his plan isn't to save the market, it's to purge it. For the first time in a generation, the most powerful man in finance isn't an academic economist with a PhD. He's a lawyer, he's a billionaire, and he's coming for the easy money. Section 1. The Addiction. But why is Kevin Warsh terrifying Wall Street? The answer isn't in his policy. It's in the addiction he's threatening to cut off. Since the great financial crisis of 2008, the global economy has been hooked on ZIRP, zero interest rate policy. When money is free, risk doesn't exist. You can borrow $1 billion at 1% interest to buy back your own stock, inflating the price and making yourself rich without actually inventing anything or selling more products. It's financial engineering, and it works until the bill comes due. Right now, we are staring at a debt wall. In 2026 alone, approximately $3 trillion of corporate debt is maturing. This is debt that was issued back when interest rates were near zero. Under Jerome Powell, the market assumed the Fed would cut rates just in time to let these companies refinance cheaply. The Fed put would save them. But Kevin Warsh isn't Jerome Powell. He believes that if you can't pay your debts at real market rates, you don't deserve to exist. He calls it creative deconstruction. The market calls it a bloodbath. So, who is this man, and why is he the only person in Washington willing to press the detonate button? Section 2. The Education of a Capitalist. Kevin Warsh didn't learn economics in a classroom. He learned it in the trenches. While his predecessors, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell, were sitting in faculty lounges writing theoretical papers about the Great Depression, Warsh was on the trading floor at Morgan Stanley. It was the late 90s, the dot-com boom. Warsh was working in mergers and acquisitions. He saw firsthand the difference between a company that actually makes money and a company that is just financial vaporware. He watched companies with zero revenue buy up competitors using inflated stock currency. He learned a lesson that most central bankers never learn. Liquidity is not the same thing as solvency. Just because you have cash today doesn't mean your business model isn't broken. This experience gave him a realist's view of the market. He doesn't look at the economy as a machine you can fine-tune with a dial. He looks at it as a jungle. And in the jungle, the weak are supposed to get eaten. Section 3. The War Room. But the defining moment of his life came in 2008. At just 35 years old, Warsh became the youngest governor in the history of the Federal Reserve. Critics called him a lightweight. They said he was just a Wall Street liaison. But when the housing market collapsed, the academics froze. Their models said this shouldn't be happening. Warsh didn't freeze. He became the operator. He was in the war room alongside Ben Bernanke and Tim Geithner. He helped engineer the bailouts for Bear Stearns and AIG. He literally helped design the Fed put that he now wants to destroy. But here is the twist. While he was saving the banks, he hated every minute of it. He viewed these bailouts as emergency medicine for a heart attack victim. You use the defibrillator to restart the heart, but you don't leave the patient hooked up to the machine for 15 years. He watched in horror as these temporary emergency measures became permanent. He realized that by saving the banks, the Fed had created a moral hazard. They taught Wall Street that no matter how reckless you are, Uncle Sam will always bail you out. In 2011, unable to stomach the launch of QE2, the second round of money printing, Kevin Warsh resigned. He walked away. Section 4. The Reverse Robin Hood. For the next decade, Warsh sat in exile at the Hoover Institution, and from the sidelines, he began to form the Warsh Doctrine. His central argument is simple but devastating. He calls quantitative easing a reverse Robin Hood policy. Think about it. When the Fed prints money to buy bonds, it lowers interest rates. This forces investors to buy risky assets like stocks and real estate to get a return. This pushes the price of those assets up. Who owns stocks and real estate? The rich. Who keeps their money in savings accounts earning 0.1% interest? The middle class and the elderly. Warsh argues that for 15 years, the Federal Reserve has been actively transferring wealth from the poor to the rich. They have been punishing prudence and rewarding gambling. He calls this financial repression. And unlike the academics who see this as a necessary side effect, Warsh sees it as a moral failure. He believes the Fed has broken the social contract, and now he's back to fix it. Section 5. The Untouchable. Now, you might be asking, won't the lobbyists just stop him? Won't Wall Street force him to pivot? This is where the FU money comes in. Kevin Warsh is married to Jane Lauder. Yes, that Lauder, the heiress to the Estee Lauder Cosmetics fortune. Together, their net worth is estimated to be nearly $3 billion. To put that in perspective, Jerome Powell is worth about $50 million. Ben Bernanke is worth maybe $5 million. Kevin Warsh is exponentially wealthier than any modern Fed chair. Why does this matter? Because usually, being a regulator is just an audition. You serve your term at the Fed, you play nice with the banks, and then you retire to a $10 million a year job at BlackRock or Goldman Sachs. It's the revolving door. Kevin Warsh doesn't need a job at BlackRock. He doesn't need speaking fees. He doesn't need Wall Street's approval. He is financially untouchable. He can afford to be the most hated man in New York. He can look a private equity mogul in the eye and say no bailout because he is one of them. He sits in judgment of them. This independence makes him a dangerous wildcard. He has no master but his own ideology. Section 6. The Zombie Hunter. So, what happens now? The target of the Walsh Doctrine is the zombie company. A zombie is defined as a company that is over 10 years old and cannot pay the interest on its debt from its own profits. They only survive by borrowing more money to pay off old money. It's a Ponzi scheme sanctioned by the central bank. Right now, an estimated 40% of the companies in the Russell 2000 index are unprofitable. Under Powell, these zombies were on life support. Under Warsh, the plug is being pulled. Warsh believes these companies are parasites. They suck up capital, labor, and market share that should go to healthy, innovative startups. They drag down the entire economy's productivity. By keeping interest rates high, higher than inflation, Warsh is going to force these companies into bankruptcy. He calls it a cleanse. If you hold stock in these companies, you are going to get wiped out. If you work for these companies, you might lose your job. Warsh knows this, and he accepts it. He adheres to the old capitalist maxim, capitalism without bankruptcy is like Christianity without hell. Section 7. The Conflict. We are entering a game of chicken. The market is still betting that Warsh is bluffing. They think that as soon as the stock market drops 10% or 15%, he will panic and cut rates just like everyone else. But remember, this is the man who warned about the dangers of the Fed put for a decade. This is the man who resigned in protest of easy money. When the first major hedge fund blows up in 2026, and it will, the market will scream for a rescue. They will beg for liquidity. And Kevin Warsh is going to do nothing. He will let the fire burn just long enough to burn down the dead wood. He will let the contagion spread just far enough to punish the reckless. He wants to restore price discovery. He wants the price of a stock to reflect its actual value, not the Fed's willingness to print money. Section 8. The verdict. The era of the Fed put is over. The era of the Warsh dollar has begun. This is a regime change. We are moving from a world where the Fed protects the stock market to a world where the Fed protects the currency. For the prudent saver, for the person who held cash and avoided debt, this is good news. Your money might actually start earning a real return again. The reverse Robin Hood might finally be stopped. But for the investor addicted to the sugar high of easy money, it's time to go cold turkey. Kevin Warsh isn't here to make you rich. He's here to make the system honest. And honesty can be a very painful thing.